Chapter 35. The Marais Nocturne. The Marais at night was a maze of narrow streets and silent stone walls. The storage facility was a former convent. Its iron gates rusted shut. Julian used a crowbar, his new favorite tool. He joked to pry the lock. Inside, the air was cold and damp. Statues of headless saints and broken gargoyles watched them from the shadows. In the center of the main hall, covered in a dusty tarp, was the replica of the winged victory of Samothrace. Vera stepped toward it. The statue was magnificent, even in its broken state. Its stone wings were spread wide, a symbol of triumph in a world of rubble. The diary said the third key opened the Grand Continental's director's cut. She remembered a detail from a 1932 film called Grand Hotel. The protagonist hides a letter in the hollow base of a decorative urn. She knelt at the base of the statue. It was solid marble, but when she tapped it, it sounded hollow. She felt along the carvings of the drapery until her fingers caught on a small, recessed lever. She pulled it. A small door in the marble opened. Inside wasn't a ledger. It was a collection of glass slides and a single silver phoenix, a perfect match for the gold coin she had seen in Vegas. "Julian, look," she said, holding up the phoenix. But as the silver bird caught the light of their flashlights, a cold voice rang out from the doorway. In the 1955 film Les Diaboliques, the voice said, "The biggest shock is the person you thought was a friend." Helena Thorne stepped out of the shadows. She was no longer wearing the grey coat of a grieving daughter. She was dressed in a sleek, black leather suit, and she was holding a silenced pistol. "Helena?" Vera said, standing up slowly. "I thought you were done with this." "I lied, Vera," Helena said, her eyes cold as the Seine. "My father didn't die for a greasy spoon. He died for the power that ledger represents." The glass slides. They contain the list of the shadow cabinet, the people who really run Europe. With those names, I don't just have wealth. I have a throne. "Your father was a bad actor in a bad movie, Helena," Vera countered. "Don't make the same mistake. The difference between my father and me, Vera, is that I've seen the ending. And in my version, the waitress doesn't get the guy. She gets the bullet." Chapter 36. The Final Encore. The standoff in the Marais felt like the climax of a Hitchcock thriller. The only sound was the drip of water from the vaulted ceiling and the rhythmic breathing of three people caught in the gears of history. In the 1944 film Gaslight, Vera said, her voice steady despite the hammer of her heart, the villain tries to make the heroine think she's losing her mind, but she realizes that the lights are dimming because he is the one stealing the jewels. "Shut up, Vera," Helena snapped, her hand shaking slightly. "This isn't a movie quiz." "It's exactly a movie quiz, Helena," Vera said, stepping closer. "Because you forgot the most important rule of the genre. The hero always has an ace in the hole." Vera reached into her pocket and pulled out the silver iron key Fontaine had given her. "The statue doesn't open from the base," Vera said. "That was the decoy. The real vault is in the ballroom of the Continental. The lever you just saw, it's a pressure plate connected to a silent alarm in the Marais police station. Dino and his team have been watching this place since we left the hotel." As if on cue, the sound of sirens began to wail in the distance. Blue lights flashed against the stone walls. Helena looked toward the door, her face contorting in rage. "You're bluffing." "In the 1941 film The Maltese Falcon," Julian added, stepping in front of Vera, "Sam Spade says that when a man's partner is killed, he's supposed to do something about it. My partner is Vera, and I'm doing something about it now." Julian lunged at Helena just as the police burst through the doors. There was a brief, violent struggle, the sound of a silenced shot echoing in the hall, a bullet that buried itself in the marble wing of the statue. Seconds later, Helena Thorne was in handcuffs, her dreams of a throne evaporating like the Paris mist. Dino walked into the room, looking relieved. "We learned from the best, Dino," Vera said, leaning against Julian. She looked at the silver phoenix in her hand. It was the third key, not a literal key, but a symbol. The archives weren't just about blackmail. They were about accountability. The shadow cabinet would finally be brought into the light. Chapter 37. The Ultimate Trivia. The following week, they were back in London. The Paris adventure had been redacted from the headlines, replaced by a quiet report of an international art smuggling ring being dismantled. Vera sat at the counter of Vera's Greasy Spoon, sipping a cup of black coffee. The shop was busy, the air warm with the smell of breakfast and the sound of the radio. "Music's hot, don't be a fool. Keep your dial, set it cool. K-O-O-L. Julian sat across from her, reading a newspaper. He looked up and smiled. "So, Mrs. Vane, what's the ultimate trivia question for today?" Vera looked out at the street. The girl from chapter 32, the one who had asked for a story, was now working behind the counter, her movements confident and her smile bright. Her name was Sarah, and she had a knack for remembering the middle names of silent film stars. "The ultimate trivia question," Vera said, "is from the 1942 film Random Harvest. In that movie, a man forgets who he is, but he never forgets the woman he loves. Do you know how he finds his way back?" Julian took her hand. "He follows the song. He follows the song," Vera whispered. The door chimes sang as a new customer walked in. It was a man in a dusty suit, looking a little lost and a lot like he architecture. Sarah leaned over the counter. "Can I help you, darling? I suppose you're looking for a good story?" Vera and Julian shared a look of pure, unadulterated happiness. The neon dreams had led them through deserts and fogs, through casinos and vaults, but they had ended up exactly where they were meant to be. The static was gone. The song was clear. It's the fact that there's always a reason to watch it again. Chapter 38. The Midnight Matinee. The piece of London, however, was as fragile as a hand-colored silent film reel. 3 years after the Paris affair, Julian and Vera had settled into a rhythm that some might call domestic, but Vera preferred to call character development. The Vera's Greasy Spoon had expanded its back room into a small, private cinema where she hosted midnight matinees for the neighborhood misfits. It was here, one rainy Tuesday, that the next chapter of their lives began not with a bang, but with a brown paper parcel. The parcel was addressed to the storyteller and contained nothing but an unlabeled 35mm film canister and a single, powder blue sheet of paper. "Powder blue," Julian noted, leaning over her shoulder as she opened it in the diner's back office. "The color of Burt Reynolds' sheets. Someone's being cheeky." Vera didn't smile. She recognized the handwriting. It was the same elegant, slanted script from the Zurich diary, but Turkey Morgan was dead, or so the script said. "The movie isn't over until the final credits roll, Vera, and the credits for the Vane family were redacted before you were born." Vera looked at Julian. "Redacted? Julian, what does this mean?" Julian's face went pale. He walked to the safe in the wall, the one they had installed after the Paris mess, and pulled out a file he had kept hidden even from her. "My father didn't die in a car accident in Switzerland, Vera," Julian whispered. "He was a cleaner for the shadow cabinet. He was the one who redacted the Phoenix files in '58, and the film in that canister. I think it's his confession. In the 1941 film The Lady Eve," Vera said, her voice trembling, "Henry Fonda says that a man who has made a mistake should be allowed to explain it. Is that what your father is doing, Julian? Explaining his mistakes? Or warning us about the ones we're about to make?" Julian replied. Chapter 39. The Director's Cut of Destiny. They watched the film that night, alone in the back room of the diner. The images were grainy, shot on a handheld camera in a location that looked like the Swiss Alps. A man sat in a leather chair, his face obscured by shadow. His voice, however, was unmistakable. It was an older, gravelly version of Julian's. "If you are watching this, Julian, then the Phoenix Vault has been opened. You have found the names, you have found the gold, but you haven't found the heart." The man in the film leaned forward, the light catching a small, familiar ring on his finger, the same diamond ring Joey Capri had once used to rig roulette wheels. "The Shadow Cabinet wasn't a criminal organization, Julian. It was a witness protection program for the people who knew the truth about the Phoenix shipments. And the heart. The real treasure isn't in a vault. It's in the script of a 1942 film that was never released. A film called The New Girl in Town. Vera gasped. The song. My song. The script is hidden in the only place the shadow cabinet could never reach, the voice continued. The basement of the Orpheum Theatre in Phoenix. Go home, Julian. Go home before the ghost of the Orpheum finds you. The screen went black. My song is a movie? Vera whispered. A movie that was never released? And hidden in our own backyard, Julian said, his eyes filled with a new, dark purpose. It seems Lady Luck is calling us back to the desert. Vera. Chapter 40. Shadow across the Orpheum.